A lot of talking heads are saying that Central America has been violent for a long time, so violence can't possibly be the reason that people are fleeing in larger numbers now. We're here to tell you why that's wrong.
Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, also known as the Northern Triangle, are three of the most violent countries in the world. For the last 4 years, Honduras has had the dishonor of having the world's highest murder rate. El Salvador and Guatemala are number 3 and number 8.
In Honduras, homicides tripled from 2005 to 2012, and its murder rate is 12 times the international average. 130,000 Salvadorans were displaced in 2012 alone, in a country of only 6 million people, and nearly as many people are dying each day as were killed at the height of their civil war.
This region is literally as dangerous as a war zone. But if Central America wasn't always this violent, how did we get here?
In some ways, it goes all the way back to the failure to really dismantle clandestine networks supplying weapons for the armed conflicts in El Salvador and Guatemala in the 90s.
In 2000, because of gains made in intercepting drugs in the Caribbean, the cartels began eyeing the land route through Central America.
The 2009 coup in Honduras and the chaos that followed, including the haphazard dissolution and reconstruction of government institutions, allowed for the swift infiltration of government entities by organized crime, the wholesale corruption of the country's security forces and police, and the rise of politicians for sale.
You have to keep in mind that Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala together are smaller than the state of Oregon. So you can imagine how a coup in Honduras would end up affecting its neighbors.
Flush with illicit resources, political protection, and control over law enforcement, the criminal organizations are ascendant. Not surprisingly, violence has continued to rise steadily in El Salvador and Guatemala and spiked dramatically in Honduras.
But why are kids in particular in the crossfire?
Street gangs that developed in the late 90s are now working with the big boys of organized crime, carrying out assassinations, extortions, and the forced recruitment of children as young as 6 years old in poor neighborhoods throughout the region, increasingly using join-or-die tactics.
Schools are ground zero for this type of recruitment, and teachers that try to protect their students are killed. There are no real witness protection systems in these countries, so if you witness a crime or you are the victim of the crime, your only choice is to move.
If you don't, you know you're likely to be targeted long before the case gets to trial, if it's even investigated at all. These cycles all feed impunity in the region.
And eventually, people figure out that no matter how many times you move within your country to a new neighborhood or a new city, you won't be safe.
And eventually people figure out it's not bad luck that the police didn't investigate their case. It's how things are.
And so people leave. They flee to Panama, Costa Rica, Belize, Nicaragua, Mexico, and the United States.
And when they end up on our border, in our country, they deserve to be protected and cared for within a system that acknowledges the victimization, violence, corruption, and trauma that they're fleeing.
We have rescued Irish children from the famine, Russian children from religious persecution, Cambodian children from genocide, Sudanese children from the Civil War.
This is a history and tradition that we should be proud of, and one that we must uphold.
Slobs, all he replied. But God forbid you ever had to walk a mile in his shoes. Then you really might know what it's like to sing the blues. Yeah, then you really might know what it's like.
Thousands of refugees from all over the world call Albuquerque home. Many fled their native countries in fear for their lives. And now that they're in the United States, they face an entirely different challenge, finding a job and keeping it in this tough economy. News 13's Caitlin McCarthy sat down with some Albuquerque refugees to share their stories and their struggles.
Salam Daev is an Iraqi refugee. He fled to the U.S. after a family tragedy.
The major reason is my brother was kidnapped and tortured for 5 days.
Today, Daev works as a case manager for Catholic Charities. The agency helps international refugees resettle. He helps other refugees find work.
We have that problem with people who ends their 180 days without finding a job and also without having resources to live.
The federal government financially supports refugees only for 6 months. Catholic Charities works with the government to help them find work. The problem these days is the declining job market.
The end of 2007, what was happening is refugees were getting part-time work only. They would get jobs and then a month later would be laid off.
The only solution for Catholic Charities was a tough one.
That we told Washington that for a little while we would not accept refugees who did not have family in Albuquerque.
Madav and Hema Subedi were allowed to come to Albuquerque in February because they have family here. They are refugees from Bhutan, a country south of Nepal.
When I was in refugee camp, it was very hard to live there.
It took Madav some time to find a job, but soon he starts one at Walmart.
But if I compare the job opportunity here in Albuquerque and other states, I could see this is the Albuquerque has quite high job opportunity than other states.
No matter what struggles refugees and Catholic Charities faces now, they're hopeful for the future.
It seems that the job market was getting a little bit better.
Caitlin McCarthy, KRQE News 13.
According to Catholic Charities, almost half of Albuquerque's refugees are from Iraq. The rest are from Bhutan, Cuba, and Africa.